So, I just got done playing Shattered Space, and I want to talk about it. Now before we go any further, spoiler warning! While I won't be spoiling the main quest and I'll be avoiding anything too important, so you can watch this if you're okay with just seeing the planet and enemies and learning some side mission style stuff. If you want to go into this blind, don't click on Starfield videos yet. Ta-da! Spoiler warning done. Now, I'm going to start with the good, then we'll go on to the bad, then the in-between, and then my conclusion, because that's just how I've listed my notes today. So starting with the good, I actually really like the way this DLC starts. Not how you begin the DLC, because to do that you need to head somewhere where nothing's happening, and just have a space station appear in front of you. Which is a bit random. I'd have preferred to just have, like, a place to go to, but instead you just try and find a system with no random event or no quests going on, jump there, and hope that the Orion space station shows up. So there you go, if you're struggling to start the DLC, that's how you do it. That's genuinely the best guide I can give you. I will say I really like the Orion space station section. That is, oh god, that's my favourite part of the DLC, I've just realised. Well, the good starting strong, I think the DLC starts very well. It sets up an interesting mystery, and best of all, you're playing in a zero-G environment at the beginning, and Starfield severely underused this in the base game. It's one of the coolest parts, one of the coolest mechanics they really added to this game, and it's very rarely used. Like, zero-G environment should be overused if anything, because it's really, really cool, it's an awesome feature, and it's just not used very much. But the start of this DLC, you get to go through a zero-G environment, I love it. Zero-G does show up a few times in small ways throughout the DLC as well, but the beginning is where it's really used well, and I enjoyed that. On to the actual planet itself now, and the planet design is great. The Rune Kai, or whatever it's called, I can't remember, there's a lot of names, a lot of them have like 7 syllables or something crazy, and I have a bad memory. But the planet is really pretty, and it actually looks unique, and not Bethesda's new version of unique, which is just but actually this planet stands out, it looks different from everything else you've been. It's nice to see a planet which feels like it is its own thing, rather than just a random collection of rocks. Although there are a lot of random rocks placed around this place, but it looks different, and I love that. You actually wander about, and it feels different, and I love it. I wish every planet in the game was like this, because then the game would actually feel like there was some variety. But this planet, great work. Everyone who worked on the art for the physical planet itself and the shattered stuff, love it. Brilliant. Really, really cool. And the other thing about this is because the DLC is really centred around this one planet, it makes everything feel a bit more real and connected. A big criticism for Starfield is that it's a loading screen simulator, because you just jump from one place to another, to another, to another, and you're looking at loading screens all the time. But this DLC is really focused on the planet, which both fits in with the lore and makes for a much more enjoyable experience. Like, travelling through space in Starfield, unfortunately, sucks, because it really is just loading screens. But this time, you're just planet-side for pretty much all of it, and you're hanging out there, and it's good, and it feels more like a traditional open-world game, I suppose, which I really appreciated. So that was the good, on to the bad now. And first off is a biggie, your choices don't really seem to matter all that much. Now, I am going to be avoiding main quest spoilers here, but I am going to spoil one side quest that has, just the pure example of this. Because there's a quest where you meet a pair of brothers, and one of them decides to challenge the other one to a duel. Cool, I'm down with that. I thought that was a cool little premise. Then you get to the end of preparation and stuff, and you get the choice of tranquilizing one, both, or neither of them. And that's how you affect the outcome of the duel. And there are actual different endings depending on, who you tranquilize. And I wrote down all 4 endings. And I'm going to refer to the brothers as A and B, because that's easy. If you tranquilize no one, then brother A dies, and you get 5,000 credits. If you trank brother A, then brother A dies, and you get 5,000 credits. Yes, that is the exact same thing. If you trank brother B dies, and you get 5,000 credits. And if you trank both of them, then neither of them die, and you get 4,000 credits. You might be thinking, oh Sarge, you're just oversimplifying this. Obviously there's like different dialogue when you do this, and yeah, depending on what you do, you'll get different dialogue and maybe some different reactions from the characters in the quest. You know, there's a bit of that. But then you go back and speak to them later. And in my case, the ending I decided to stick with after testing out all 4 of these was the one where I killed neither of them. I tranked both of them so they couldn't kill each other, and both of them were left alive. Then I went back and spoke to them, and this is what they did.
You robbed me of the chance to defend my family's honor. You are just as slimy as Amila. Are you trying to mock me? You were supposed to facilitate the duel, not scuttle it. You and Danica only served to fan the flames. There will be another duel soon enough. I was a fool, and I thank the Great Serpent that you and Danica took action to stop me. I am ashamed. Yet somehow, there was one blessing that came out of this travesty. I apologized to Amila for challenging him. And he apologized to me, and I believed him. I feel hopeful for his future for the first time in so many years.
And to be clear, this was what they said every single time I spoke to them. I was thinking that, oh, maybe because this is the option where you get slightly less credits, but you've saved them, they'll have a reward for you later on or something once they've come to their senses. No, they just get angry, then get sad, then forgive you, and they do that every single time you speak to them. It's clearly a bit of a bug, and they shouldn't have the first half of that in, they should have, reconnected and stuff. But, no, it's a prime example of how little the choices matter throughout this entire DLC. It's always just kind of pushing you towards the one path that's available. I'm not going to say what it is, but late on in the main quest, there are 2 choices you can pick. And one of the choices, if you pick it, it goes, cool, pick the other choice. And that's it. You can't stick with your choice, you just have to select option 1 every time. And it is so infuriating, because you have basically no player agency. And speaking of that, the player character really doesn't have any incentive to be sticking around and helping these people. It's a minor thing, but it kept popping up in my mind, why am I doing any of this? And it's just because it's a mission for me to go on. That's it. There's no reason for the player to be helping out, really. You can definitely roleplay a reason, and you could just be like, oh, you should help people, which, yeah, that's a good thing to do, but there's no reason written in for your player character to specifically help out. It's not like, oh, you're a prisoner so you're being forced to work, or oh, you were sent here by a trusted friend to help out. It's just, no, you showed up, they said, hey, come do this stuff for us, and you just say yes. But it's... I just don't like that, okay? I will say as well that at the end of the main quest, I was left feeling very unsatisfied, because I had a few questions, and none of them were really answered. And I went back and double-checked stuff, I looked over my footage, I read some of the notes and audio logs that I'd picked up on my travels, and none of my questions got answered. The DLC is really like a bit of a mystery at the start, and the mystery's just not solved at the end. I'm not sure if the answer to my questions is hidden somewhere away where I didn't find it, but by the end of the DLC it was just like, yep, you did stuff, and that's it. Fine, yeah, cool. Additionally, the characters in the DLC, most of them are very forgettable and just not very well fleshed out. Just genuinely, the duel characters, the ones who were the brothers involved in a duel, those are the most memorable characters to me. And I just refer to them as the Duel Brothers, because they have very little depth. The characters in the main questline as well, they're a bit more fleshed out, they do have some level of personality, but they all feel fairly one-note. And yeah, I remember the missions, I don't remember anyone's name, although that's partially because the names tend to be a bit complicated. And yeah, they're just the characters, I didn't click with any of them. That might be different for you though. Quest rewards. Meh. Yeah, that's it for quest rewards. There's nothing good you get as a quest reward. Technically you get a couple of good items, but due to the legendary system and the lack of uniques, you don't actually get anything that's really noteworthy, and I'll touch on that later in the in-between section. Final part of the bad, though, is I took Andrea, I can't remember how to pronounce her name, the rune follower you get as part of the base game. I took her along for all of the DLC, and she has nothing interesting to say. Like, I didn't have my relationship maxed out with her or anything, so maybe that affects it, but for the entire DLC, her remarks were just super generic. I figured this would be like a Nick Valentine and Far Harbor sort of situation, where there'd be a cool scene play out where she, interacts with her homeworld or whatever it is, and no, she's just like, oh, a ruin. An abandoned outpost, you say? This looks interesting. It's all just so generic, and I was very disappointed by that. Hopefully it's just a case of I didn't have my relationship with her in the right frame or something, because, yeah, it's a complete missed shot. Everyone was expecting you take along the Varun follower, she has interesting things to say, but constantly I was speaking to her and there's just no option to be like, hey, we're on the Varun planet. You want to comment on that at all? She's just like, an enemy over there, bang, bang, bang. It's a stupidly missed opportunity. Now on to the in-between bits. So the general mood and tone of the DLC wasn't half as interesting as it could have been. We're seeing House Varun, who's this zealous faction that worships the Great Serpent, but this kind of just felt tonally a lot like the rest of the game, despite the fact we're in this cool new location with a very weird faction. It just, a lot of the time it was like, yep, these are still just people, and besides them being like, yes, all must serve, and serpent's blessings and stuff like that, just kind of felt the same, The mood wasn't it didn't feel that different. It just, the feeling when playing the game was very similar to what you're used to. Additionally, there is new equipment that comes with this, especially a few new guns, which I'm sure I'll be showing a little bit of in the footage. And they seem decent, but due to the legendary system, it's only really worth using them if you get a lucky drop. The best weapons I got were basically base game weapons that just happened to be legendary drops from generic enemies. None of the rewards I got were particularly good, because it'd be like, oh, it's a 1-star item. Cool. It's not got a great effect. Sure, it's the new type of weapon, but it's not all that good. It's just, because of the legendary system, it's entirely down to RNG on whether you should use the new equipment or not. Right at the very end, I decided to switch out to some Varun armor, but I had no legendary or rare or epic or whatever the rarity system is. None of my Varun stuff fit in with that, so I was just having to use worse equipment in order to make it look like I fit in, because there's no unique cool stuff. And on that note, there are shops on this planet. I wasn't allowed to go and trade with any of them until the end of the game, so I was like, oh, hiding the good stuff behind the end game. This is kind of cool and thematic and stuff, makes sense not to trade with an outsider. All of the shops hold generic loot. Just generic stuff, not even an epic item or anything. No uniques, nothing good, not even House Varun stuff they were selling. It was all the exact same you'd see at any merchant. It was such a disappointment. Maybe this is more of bad than in between, but that's because I really hate the legendary system and lack of uniques. Another in-between thing, which I haven't actually put on my notes but I do want to quickly mention, is that the main enemy type I'd say that you encounter in this DLC teleports. And depending on the type of player you are, you might be like, oh cool, that's a neat thing for an enemy to do, or you might be like, god no, I hate teleporting enemies. And these enemies can be quite obnoxious with it at times. There was one, enemy I was facing who just would not stop teleporting, and it was like they'd stay still for maybe a second, and they'd teleport away, and there was not enough time for me to even aim at them. So, yeah, I just ended up having to run away from that enemy because there was nothing I could do. Yeah, it's a bit annoying at times, but it's kind of cool to have enemies behaving differently, I guess. Final in-between point is that this is a fairly short DLC. I played for 6 hours, and there's maybe a few more hours of side missions that I could track down, but that would pretty much be me 100%ing the DLC. I wasn't rushing through, I was listening to people, I was selecting lots of dialogue options, I did a few side missions, and in 6 hours I was done. I feel like that's fairly short, and we may as well move on to the conclusion now, because for what it's worth, there's not enough content for a £26 DLC. Like, I pre-purchased an edition of the game, which means I didn't have to buy this DLC again, and as I was playing through, I was like, oh yeah, you know what, for a £10 DLC, this seems like what I'd expect. And right before I recorded this, I checked on Steam the price of the DLC, and it's 26 Great British pounds. That's too much. That's basically half a game for what is 6 hours of okay content. Like, no, just no, I cannot recommend this at all. Like, sure, if you're a really big Starfield fan, then great, there's a bit more content for you. Depending on your own personal finances, it may be worth waiting for this to be on sale, and depending on how much you love the game, maybe it is worth splashing out. But unless you're a huge Starfield fan, I would not recommend purchasing this. And quite frankly, this DLC is not going to change anyone's opinion on the game one way or another. If you already enjoy the game, this is basically just more of what you enjoy. If you don't enjoy the game, this is more of what you don't enjoy. This is not a DLC to change anyone's mind whatsoever. I feel like it doesn't really do anything new or exciting or weird, it's just kind of more Starfield. Which, like I say, if you enjoy the game, great, there's a bit more Starfield. It's expensive to get more of it, but hey, that's the way it goes. Now, if you do want to see more of the game, I am considering streaming a bit of it on Friday. I'm thinking about just like driving around the planet, taking pretty pictures and stuff, because I want them for some Patreon wallpapers, and doing like some, as spoiler-free as possible, exploration. But I'm like, should I do that, should I not? So let me know if you'd be interested in seeing that. But after I'm done with the stream, basically by the end of the week, I have no plans to return to Starfield. Like, this DLC was either going to change things for me, or just reinforce that, yeah, this isn't a game for me, I'm not going to have fun with it. I just don't think Starfield is very good, and I think it's a shame that it's becoming like the most expensive game as well that Bethesda's making because of all the Creation Club and expensive DLC and whatnot. And it's one of their worst in my opinion. But hey, that was Shattered Space and my little mini review of it. Let me know in the comments below what you thought. I'm sure there'll be already a few people screaming one way or the other, so that'll be fun to look forward to. As always, thanks for watching. Sarge out.